Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us. I am joined today by John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette because it is Monday. Welcome, my friend. Good to be with you.
Always a pleasure.
Let's begin with the hot rumor of the day. It's actually been kicking around for quite a while now, but it seems to have some new resurgence early part of this week. Tom Cotton, potential pick to be the next CIA director should Rex Tillerson leave Secretary of State and Mike Pompeo move over to Secretary of State. Why do you think these rumors of Senator Tom Cotton leaving the Senate, joining the Trump administration persist?
Well, you would probably know better than I would, being as close to the senator as you are, while I'm not. However, I'll go ahead and give an answer. The lack of information will not stop me from speculating on, of course, this is purely speculative matter anyway. This all begins with the assumption that the Trump-Tillerson relationship is fatally flawed, that it cannot continue. So we'll need a new Secretary of State, and that the man at CIA would go to Secretary of State. Cotton persists generally, that rumor, which I heard last week, and they say it's getting stronger now, because he is of an intellectual bent and a sort of a philosophical alliance with the president's foreign policy team. He, in fact, recommended, he is said to be Donald Trump's favorite senator, and he, in fact, Cotton recommended McMaster for his job in the White House. He's close to the Marine generals as well, and has strong principled views on foreign policy and international affairs. So that's why it persists. What is less clear to me is why Cotton would consider it, but he must be if the rumors not only are persisting past a week, but if they appear to be stronger than before. And for all my criticisms of Tom Cotton, one thing I've always said is that he seems to be principled on the things that he believes in. And I think he believes in certain foreign policy tenets that he shares with this Trump team and would fit well with it. How that would fit his obvious political ambition. Is it better, if you want to become president after Trump, to be a senator? Or is it better to be part of Trump's team, potentially at risk of being judged by Trump rather than by yourself? That's the more interesting thing to me.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of U.S. presidents that came from the U.S. Senate lately. But we did have a CIA director. Can you name him?
Yeah, George H.W. Bush.
Right, George H.W.
Was that,
Bush.
were you trying to embarrass me here on,
No.
on statewide streaming?
I'm testing you
Well,
because I
did
know
and I
that you
passed
cannot
instantly.
be beat.
Instantly.
Yes. A+.
Yeah, okay, good. So that there is precedent for it. It would not seem to be, it would seem by its necessity to be a low profile, under the radar job. It's the CIA rather than a political stepping stone, but it could be.
It could be. And that would also trigger some interesting ramifications in Arkansas.
Well, that's the big story for us, yeah.
Exactly, because you would have a vacated Senate seat, which Governor Asa Hutchinson would appoint a short-term replacement, and it would possibly, depending on the timing, throw open a U.S. Senate race in 2018, which would be unexpected.
Yeah, I believe, and this just came up, and I meant to check it last week. I think the governor certainly makes an appointment, but it only lasts not until the end of the term, which in Cotton's case would be 2020, but until the next general election, which would give us both an appointed senator, which is interesting, everybody angling to go to the United States Senate for a few months. I'm going to call the governor's office later today and recommend that I think I'd be, and if not me, then you. I don't know how those chances, but you know the governor and I've gotten along okay.
Yeah, I
don't
see that in your cards.
Okay.
So, but there's nothing wrong with asking, though, John.
But you know, it would change the dynamic of the U.S. Senate, wouldn't it?
You got to remember, Asa Hutchinson's running for re-election next year too, and he's probably not going to want you as part of his ticket.
Maybe he'll appoint the gun goddess to the Senate and take care of that matter. Jan Morgan.
Jan Morgan. We'll get to her in a minute.
Appoint to the next term, and then so we have two big political stories. Should that happen, it's almost enough to make me want Cotton to go to the CIA. A prospect that generally alarms me, but for the interests of Arkansas political activity, it'd be interesting to see. I can't think who Asa would pick to the Senate. Could be any number of people. And then who might run, who among the 4 members of Congress might run for the Senate, and might Asa run for the Senate, or any number of
might
things.
Anyone from the state legislature, or maybe even an outsider run, because it would be the year of the outsider. There could be some potential for that. We could have an Alabama-style, wide-open U.S. Senate race.
If only Tom Cotton would become in charge of American foreign intelligence.
Maybe Tommy Robinson makes a resurgence.
Yeah.
Nonplussed by that one.
No, well,
right,
that or Jason Raper would be my favorite
let's stay
nominations.
on national affairs here. At the end of last week, President Trump also made a declaration to end the insurance subsidies as part of the Affordable Care Act, throwing the healthcare markets into some immediate turmoil here. What do you think is the impact on Arkansas from that decision? What's the potential?
I believe that our Medicaid expansion, first called the private option, then called Arkansas Works, has been held together by Band-Aids applied by 2 practical, competent, effective governors, Beebe and then Asa Hutchinson, working with a few responsible, pragmatic, smart Republican state legislators like Dismang and Davy Carter and former Speaker Davy Carter, David Sanders, Charlie Collins on this issue, and they've managed impractically to get us somehow to these 3/4 majority of votes to keep this program in place. I have always had this feeling of dread that it's going to collapse at any time. It's just unlikely for a state that professes to so hate the Affordable Care Act to be one of the smartest states in the country in using it. We'll use the expansion money to buy insurance for 300,000 working poor people on our private exchange. Trump could not get it repealed, could not replace it, so now he's going to sabotage it. He simply is. And these cost-sharing subsidies that he's ending, those, for all the people who buy health insurance on the exchanges who get it subsidized up to a certain income level, these cost-sharing subsidies relieve those customers of having to pay out-of-pocket deductibles, co-pays, those sorts of things. That enables them to afford already subsidized premiums. It also helps the insurance carriers keep the rates down. What further has enabled in Arkansas to keep the rates down more than in other states is that we've been plopping 300,000 people on public funding into this pool, which helps all of us. I believe now that it's going to implode. I simply believe.
You don't see Congress stepping in because there's
well,
been
failing
pressure
that,
from the
failing that.
insurance
but,
companies.
My first answer is based on the current situation. And you get the governor's not willing to say that he's not fatalistic about it yet, but of course politicians don't talk that way. But I believe premiums are going to rise so much that some of the people who are it's called a death spiral, some of the people in the exchanges will bail out for lack of affordability, making already increasing rates increase even more for those who are trying to stay in it, such as our Medicaid expansion population. And the state is going to assume up to 10% of these costs eventually. They're up at 5% now, and it's going to sneak up to 10. I believe that's going to price state government right out of it. And so I think that our Medicaid expansion plan will fail. I think our rural hospitals will be at great risk of closing unless Congress statutorily imposes these subsidies, which Obama had been doing absent statutory authority and which has caused a lawsuit. Asa Hutchinson told me a week or two ago, 2 weeks ago, that he supported the idea of bipartisan fixes in Congress to Obamacare. Failing anything else, he would support the idea, but he hastened to say, in this climate, don't be optimistic.
Right.
So I'm not sure, because fixing Obamacare with a simple fix on these subsidies would require Republicans who promised to get rid of it to prop it up. And though that's practically and responsibly the thing to do, politically, I don't see it. I think we're in big trouble with health care nationally and in this state.
All right, we will certainly keep that on our topic of conversation. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back and talk some more with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the governor's race for 2018. We're back after this.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
And welcome back to the program. I'm Roby Brock. We are with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Let's turn our attention to, we talked a little bit about 2018 potential elections if this Senate stuff shakes out, the CIA with Tom Cotton. But we do definitely have a governor's race next year, at least at the top of the ticket. And Governor Asa Hutchinson finds himself with a potential primary challenge now. Jan Morgan out of Hot Springs is going to, well, she has formed an exploratory committee. What do you make of this?
Well, at the very least, it adds some interest to the year. She's sort of a fiery, sassy, photogenic, telegenic firebrand who is of the pro-gun right, by which that means any gun, anytime, anywhere. She has testified to a legislative committee. She's a gun firing range owner over in Hot Springs. She has testified to legislative committees critically of Hutchinson because he keeps trying to amend these bills, these gun bills.
Do you think she can out-NRA, outgun Asa?
She can
He's pretty good on with his NRA record.
Yes, she can outgun anybody. Yeah, and Asa, remember, Governor Hutchinson has continued to do pragmatic things, such as saying, at the very least on this college guns bill, let's require additional training before people can carry their concealed weapons on college campuses. And then he came in with a fix of a bill the NRA supported so that we could at least get the Razorback football games and UAMS out of the places where guns could be taken. I don't think he's in great trouble with the NRA, but I think she's to the right of the NRA. I found it, somebody sent me a screenshot of a tweet of hers that criticizes the NRA for being too compromising. I think there's an extreme right out there in Arkansas that is prone to see Hutchinson as the establishment as too obliging. Not enough to beat him, not enough to make it reasonably close, but enough to keep it interesting. And what I'm wondering is if this Jan Morgan, who is part of a national alt-right establishment, she gives speeches at gun rallies over the country. She went into Alabama and campaigned for Roy Moore. She's on Fox and Fox Business representing the gun right. I wonder if she's a Bannon type, because you know Steve Bannon's approach, embraced, they say, privately by the president, is to run from the populist right against establishment Republicans nationwide. That's mostly been about Congress, but you know, Asa is purely an establishment Republican. I wonder if that's part of that. I can't get Tom Cotton on the phone, and I can't get Jan Morgan on the phone. You need to get her on the show so we can get these answers from her.
Well, you need a new phone plan, maybe. So if you're having trouble getting connected with all these phone calls,
it's not all of them. It's just those two.
Okay. Well, let's talk about something else. I think you've got a column coming up on how liberal Asa Hutchinson is, as described by Conduit for Action, which is one of these groups that does promote a lot of anti-establishment and alt-right candidates.
I just think there is I'm writing about it for tomorrow because, one, it's kind of interesting to the point of hilarity that Asa Hutchinson would be a tax and spend liberal. But I think there is, the big national story with Republicans is their growing dysfunction between what's called mainstream and then what's the people on the right who consider them no different from Democrats. I look for signs of that in Arkansas. Arkansas usually trails national activity by several years, but Hutchinson is purely an establishment Republican, which a few years ago would have been a very right-wing Republican, but now there are people to his right. And I look for signs of it. This Conduit for Action has criticized him for liberal tax policy, because do you remember he proposed and built into his budget a reduction in low income tax rates in his last session. Then after he had done that, after he had a tax cut and had a budget, legislative efforts arose to exempt military retirement income. And he said, very simply, applying math, okay, but we're going to have to pay for it. We've got to come up with some other money. Conduit for Action says the other money he insisted on coming up with to replace the, was it 5 million, 13 million?
It was closer to 9. Is
okay,
what I
or somewhere
recall.
right in the middle. That amounts to a tax increase. And he therefore is a taxer, a tax and spend liberal, because after he put in a budget that contained a tax cut, he wanted to offset any further erosion in his budget. Beyond that, this task force that he set up, that Jim Hendren, his nephew, is co-chair of, it has hired a consultant to help it gather data, state-by-state comparative data on taxes and exemptions and those sorts of things. The project manager that the consultant has assigned to the job is on Twitter. And he is on Twitter saying nice things about Obama and bad things about Trump, and retweeting groups that the Conduit for Action calls liberal propagandists, the National League of Cities, the Association of Cities, and the
So
Brookings
we maybe get a
Institution.
new project manager is what you're saying. So.
No, they're saying, they say, governor's nephew has taken your money to turn over your tax policy to pro-Obama liberal. It's interesting that it's percolating out there, and it's symptomatic of this whole notion, this whole guilt by association. If you have a political identification, then you can't be trusted to tell any truth about data or anything else. It's the same principle that applies to so-called fake news. And it's not enough to create political peril for Hutchinson, but it's interesting that it's happening, and it is an increment, an Arkansas increment of the national affliction for the Republican Party.
He's going to have to take some medicine to get rid of the itch is what he's going to have to do. So
He's probably going to have to do a couple of conservative things.
yeah. All right. He's John Brummett.
And I dread those.
You will not find him doing some conservative things
Well, I
anytime
might.
soon.
I might.
You might?
Well, you never know.
Name one conservative thing you would do.
Well, I can't off the top of my head. I told you who the CIA
Would you
person was.
would you wear your tie like Donald Trump, possibly?
I do
That
wear
would be
my
pretty
tie like
conservative.
Donald Trump.
Do you? It's long. It has tape on it.
It's got tape on it.
I like it. All
I
right.
learned that from this president. I got something constructive out of this president.
John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Thank you as always. And thank you for tuning in. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for watching.